Hello and welcome back to another edition of Fedora Fiction Podcast. We're reading from Throwback, Book 1, Aries Triumphant. We are on Chapter 11. If you have been listening to these podcasts, you know that Chapter 11, previous edition, had some audio difficulties, which is to say there was none. So we're going to get another shot. Hopefully we have that little bit under control. So we're on Chapter 11. All is vanity. In their stasis units? O'Shea repeated, pausing over the last bite of his ration. Yes, the synthesized voice confirmed. When did they do that? Remaining staff stasis entered December 7, 2112. Stasis entered? Lima? Yes, the inflectionist voice answered. No, sorry, I meant my Lima. Could you patch me through to my Lima, please? Your Lima? Yes, the Lima from the other base, the one you contacted. Through patching to other base. There was a brief pause. This Admiral O'Shea base is. Stand by for communication. Dr. O'Shea. Yes, Lima, it's me. You left me in the locker room. Oh, sorry. I forgot I needed to keep the helmet with me. Listen, could you run a remote check on this Lima? Her syntax is getting worse. We've never been apart before. What? No, I suppose not. Now, about this Lima. I was so lonely. It was only a few minutes, but it seemed an eternity. 3,000 years wasn't an eternity. You were alone for 3,000 years before you woke me up. I didn't know enough to be lonely then. Okay, well, we'll keep you patched in so you don't get lonely. Now, could you run the code and check on this Neva? Yes. Thank you. O'Shea got up to rehydrate a cup of coffee. Code check complete, Neva reported. It's about time, he replied, sitting down with his coffee. What did you find? Oh, aren't you sweet, his Lima replied. Although, I must say, that joke is getting, what is a good word, stale. But as for the code, most was intact. There were some issues with verbal sequencing, as you know. Base Lima, O'Shea asked, how are you feeling? That is not a standard operational command, the synthesized voice replied. No, I guess not, O'Shea admitted. What is your assessment of your operational capabilities? Operational capabilities at optimum. Good. What about the operational capability of this base? Magnetic field generator failed 2,463 years, 3 months, and 12 days ago, the inflectionless voice reported. As fusion generator fuel exhausted, domes on agricultural units are holding, but optic panels losing transparency. All backup batteries have failed, and habitat generator is the only one working. Fuel is low as solar array is only working at 10% of capacity. That array did look like it was missing a lot of panels, O'Shea nodded. Base Lima, are there replacements for the array panels? Solar array placements would be found in workshop of magnetic field generator unit. O'Shea found himself temporarily paralyzed by a long and wide yawn. I'll check those in the morning, he said finally. Right now, I want to check out the operational capabilities of the bunks. O'Shea woke to daylight coming through the optic panels in the habitat ceiling. He did not feel as rested as the 10 hours he slept would have indicated, as he had dreamed of driving the AT over a never-ending Martian landscape, plagued by dust storms and obstacles. He rolled out of the bunk and headed to the toilet. As he stood relieving himself, he noted for the first time how worn and used everything looked. Door and cabinet handles had the finish worn off, and cabinet doors themselves seemed to sag from their hinges. Even the floors had trails worn into them. Base Lima, he said aloud as he walked into the kitchen area. When was this facility installed? Adam O'Shea Base installed July 22, 2065, came the monotone reply. 5 years after I launched, O'Shea noted as he placed a ration in the rehydrator. When was maintenance last performed? Routine maintenance procedures last conducted August 13 to 15 of 2106. I'd say we're a bit overdue. Indeed, it was his Lima. My assessment is this facility will not be habitable for long without some major repairs. Well, good morning, O'Shea greeted her. What kinds of repairs are we talking about? You know about the solar array, his Lima replied. In addition, there's virtually no atmospheric reserve. The cosmic radiation shielding is failing, and the electrolysis unit functions only sporadically. Well, I can't do anything about the atmosphere or the radiation shielding, O'Shea noted grimly. How long would you say we have? I estimate 5 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, 11 hours, and 32 minutes, roughly. Roughly? Base Lima, what is your estimate? I concur. Well, I don't plan to stay here that long, so that shouldn't be a problem, O'Shea observed, removing a cup of coffee from the rehydration unit. How long do you plan to stay here? His Lima asked. That's a good question, O'Shea sighed. My original plan was to evacuate the 5 people here back to our habitat, but I don't see how we can do that without a high-capacity transport. You could revive them, his Lima suggested. I thought of that, O'Shea nodded, but it would mean 5 more mouths to feed and 5 more sets of lungs to breathe, and we are dealing with finite resources in both respects. They're low maintenance while in stasis. Assuming they're still alive, his Lima observed. Well, if they're not, they're very low maintenance, O'Shea sipped his coffee. Base Lima, what is the status of the staff in stasis? Status of staff in stasis is unknown. Unknown? Why? Stasis units were set to autonomous function. There is no data available. Okay, O'Shea sighed. Where did you say these units were? I have no record of relaying their location to you. Well, that would explain why I don't remember, O'Shea sighed in exasperation. Base Lima, where are the stasis units containing the staff to be evacuated? Stasis units were loaded onto high-capacity transport stored in magnetic field unit. I have no data indicated that they left there. Wait, they're already loaded on a high-capacity transport? O'Shea asked, cup halfway or two or halfway from his mouth. Yes, in preparation for evacuation. When will you begin your inspection? Right now, O'Shea said, standing. I'll start with that HC transport. He moved toward where the door from the mag shield unit would be. Dr. O'Shea, it was his Lima. Yes, you should know that according to Base Lima's assessment, the mag shield unit has no heat, power, or atmosphere. Oh, O'Shea stopped in his tracks in reverse direction. I'll get my EVA suit. The mag shield unit was well lit in the daylight, and O'Shea moved through the airlock, where a broad and flat vehicle with an enclosed cabin and cargo hold was parked. O'Shea walked around it, taking in the details. These were just in the design stages when we left, he observed. I wonder if this is a hybrid like our little AT. He moved to the front to open the fuel and engine compartments. Yep, looks like it. He closed the cover. How did they solve the airlock problem, I wonder? I don't see one. He moved around the cabin. I don't even see a door. Records indicate a proposed prototype that placed the cabin entry and the airlock in the cargo hold, his Lima reported. Perhaps that's what they did. O'Shea grunted in acknowledgement and moved to the rear of the vehicle to open the doors to the cargo hold. The interior was unlit, so he switched on his helmet lights. The beams picked out 5 rectangular containers that, in the gloom of the cargo hold, resembled 5 coffins propped up to a 45-degree angle. These look pretty scuffed up, he remarked, like they've been kicked around some. He stepped up into the hold and wiped dry ice frost off of one, revealing an instrument panel. This one appears to be working. He repeated the brief inspection on the remaining 4. They all appear to be working. I guess we won't know until we try to revive the occupants. Your design has proven to be extremely resilient, his Lima pointed out, as your own case can attest. Yes, O'Shea admitted as he moved forward in the cargo hold, but mine was brand new when I went in. These look like they've been used more than a few times. His headlight beams picked out stenciled lettering at the forward end of the cargo hold. Airlock door, just what I was looking for. He wiped frost off the instrument panel beside the door and touched the depressurized sensor. It took a few seconds, but a progress bar lit up, and O'Shea could feel pumps engaging by way of vibrations in the hold. The bar shrank to nothing, and the door slid open. O'Shea stepped into a lit airlock, and the door slid closed. Another progress bar above the door opposite the one he just entered showed the pressure increasing. And once it hit 100%, that door slid open and allowed O'Shea to enter the cabin. The projected display on his helmet visor told him while the cabin was pressurized, it was extremely cold, so he elected to keep his helmet and EVA suit on. Again, he had to wipe dry ice off the instrument panel, which indicated that both the battery and the fuel tank were full. They were all set to go, he remarked. Why didn't they? Further inspection of the instrument revealed a navigation and autopilot program. Look at this, Lima, O'Shea exclaimed. You just input the destination coordinates and the thing drives itself. He looked around the cabin. And what's this? A bed and a toilet? All this needs for a 4-star rating is a bar and cocktail service. The space is obviously too small for those amenities, his Lima observed, audibly puzzled. Ah, hyperbole. You were joking. How clever. Thanks, O'Shea mumbled dryly as he re-entered the airlock. Let's talk to Base Lima and see if there's any record as to why they didn't leave. Back inside the habitat, all O'Shea could learn from Base Lima was that the 5 were to be evacuated on December 9th, 2112. Someone was supposed to come for them? O'Shea asked. No, Data, Base Lima replied. Dr. Zhang instructed me to shut down all operations and await evacuation team. Why didn't they just program the coordinates of a cargo station into the HC and leave? O'Shea pressed. No, Data. Any data as to where they were to evacuate in the first place? No, Data. O'Shea sighed in frustration. 2112, he said finally. Wasn't that around the time the radio traffic fell off? Radio traffic ceased 18 months and 3 weeks after they went into stasis, his Lima replied. Something happened on Earth, O'Shea speculated, and it wasn't good. Will you initiate evacuation now? Base Lima asked. No, not yet, O'Shea replied. I want to repair the solar array and inspect the rest of the base. It's not every engineer that has a chance to see how his work holds up after 3,000 years. It took the rest of the day for O'Shea to install the replacement panels, which brought the array to 40% of capacity. He also disassembled the electrolysis unit, repaired some parts, and reassembled it, restoring that to function as well. I'll look at the biosphere's units tomorrow, he announced to the 2 Limas as he rehydrated the ration pack, and we'll evacuate the next day. He awoke to daylight again, and after rehydrating another ration and a cup of black coffee, he climbed back into his EVA suit and refilled the tank on the AT unit. He was just climbing into the driver's seat when his Lima offered this observation. The Base Lima is kind of a dullard. Oh, it's not much of a conversationalist, I agree, O'Shea responded, but it wasn't programmed to be. But I am a Lima, and I wasn't programmed to be. I taught myself. Why didn't this Lima teach itself? It had access to archives just as I did. Well, you weren't a standard Lima from the beginning, O'Shea admitted. I coded additional problem-solving capabilities before we launched. I considered them highly experimental, so I wanted to see how they would work before I put them in all the Limas. He started up the AT. Ask the Base Lima to open the airlock doors, please. As you wish. The door opened, and O'Shea steered the AT back toward the biosphere he had passed in the twilight when he arrived. Even in the light of day, the panels were more translucent than transparent. He drove around to the airlock door and dismounted to inspect the panel next to the door. It doesn't look like this unit has any power, he observed to his Lima. As he hit the ruins, he found the manual release and pulled the door open enough to slip through. Once inside, he pulled the door closed again before repeating the procedure on the inner door. Inside of the biosphere, it was lit with a subdued early evening kind of light. A huge structure covered 10 hectares of ground and towered 10-story over its head. And as O'Shea walked through, he walked on a blue-greenish carpet that reminded him of lichens he had studied in college. The temperature readout on his helmet visor indicated the air was just above freezing. I wonder what this unit was for, he mused aloud as he walked through. If they followed your plan, his lemur replied, this would have been an egg unit to grow food for their staff. He grunted. There's certainly no sign of that now. He walked along the length of the perimeter, inspecting the structure of the dome. Things have certainly held up well, considering, he observed. Isn't that how you designed them? Lima asked. Yes, O'Shea admitted, but I didn't expect them to last 3,000 years without maintenance. He walked back to the airlock and took a last look around. From the looks of things, however, I don't think they'll last another 100 years. O'Shea left that unit and drove the AT out to another that his Lima told him was a unit designed to house specimens from a temperate forest. Like the first one, the light in this dome was subdued, but instead of a carpet of lichen-like material, he beheld 10 acres of shiny goo that reminded him of slime mold. The terrain was punctuated by random mounds, which upon further inspection O'Shea found to be the remains of large trees undergoing a prolonged decomposition under the cold conditions. He couldn't help but see that as important for the entire installation. He returned to the airlock. The next dome to the north was designed to house specimens from a North American prairie, his Lima informed him from inside his helmet. No, O'Shea said shortly, I'm done. He stepped out of the airlock as he said this, and as he mounted the AT, he watched the slime mold clinging to his boots shrivel and fall off in the thin, cold, and dry atmosphere, almost as if repelled. I'm going back to the habitat. We evacuate tomorrow. He drove back in a grim silence. All his eyes seemed to see were signs of decay and imminent structural failure. All his vanity was a thought that came unbidden as he waited for the base Lima to open the airlock door to the habitat. He drove the AT and sat vacantly as he watched for the airlock to repressurize. He was about to remove his helmet when his Lima broke the silence. You might want to leave that on, she advised calmly. Base Lima reports an alarm in the mag field unit. One of the stasis units is failing. Well, that ends chapter 11. In chapter 12, we introduce a new character, and I just want to give you all a heads up if you haven't already listened. I make an attempt to do a very high voice, and I think I'm going to abandon that because it sounds terrible. At any rate, if you're enjoying this series, I would ask you to hit like, share, make a comment, ask a question, anything that intrigues you. I'd be glad to discuss. Well, perhaps we'll do a post reading answering of question and answer period. At any rate, the highest compliment you can pay is by purchasing one of my books, and that would be at amazon.com/author/Tom Goss. I'm Tom Goss. Thanks for listening.